footsteps section of my game audio systems design and implementation walkthrough in Unreal Engine 5.2. So in this video, we will take a look at how I went about creating and implementing footsteps by using Metasounds, and how I also programmed the animation and the third-person character blueprints to interact with this. I would like to emphasize, if you do not know how blueprints work or how Metasounds work at all, this is probably not for you, because I will just go very shortly over the very basics of like animation notifications, etc., stuff like that that you can use for footsteps, but I will try to focus more on the audio side. So I highly recommend you check the sources section so you can get more of an idea what I'm talking about if there's something that you didn't hear before. So let's get started. So here you can see a basic Metasound template that I created, which I then used as a baseline for all my other Metasounds. So, in the heel layer, you can see one of the Metasound patches that I created. And this patch also has another patch in it, kind of like a Matryoshka doll, if you must. I highly recommend an approach like this. I highly recommend both using the Metasound presets and Metasound patches. They are your friends, because instead of, for example, creating this structure like, I don't know, 100 times in a row, or like keep copy pasting and then changing your variables, etc. Just creating this once. In this case, I create a randomized wave player, which is mono, which also has an input to trigger compare. So like you can just create this once as a patch. As you can see, it is different from a regular Metasound source, and then use it as much as you want with different arrays or different wave files, basically different source files. For example, in the space, this is a character footstep layers, where you can see this is empty. But if we go one step up, where I am using this patch in this template, and when we look at this template, this is also empty, because this is the base template where I copy pasted to create other templates. And when I go back to my footsteps, for example, let's take a look at Ice Walk. Now, when we click on this, we're gonna see a bunch of layers that we can use. I have in here, almost 10 sound files that you can use as the base layer. Same here, same here. So I programmed this as such. We have the heel section, we have the toe section, so we can mix them separately. And more importantly, what I did is once you trigger heel, there's a delay, of course, that the toe layer triggers after that. And you can change the delay time in here. This is also something you can program both during gameplay time, or like runtime, or beforehand. You can change the heel to toe delay. For example, if your character maybe is walking slower or faster, or I don't know, the different walk types, you can have a different type of delay. And also we have a lot of additional layers. As you can see, this is ice crackling, resonance layer. Again, additional ice cracks. Again, like I said, I haven't used all of these. For example, in here, the layer 4 is almost completely down because I listened and see what worked with the level I designed. And of course, we have the mixer section. So the good thing about creating a template, once you create this, you don't have to create it again. You can just copy and paste it if you have a template, and then just change the sounds. And another thing we need to take a look at is, for example, there are a bunch of booleans to trigger layers on and off from the start. For example, when the cinematic layer is not on by default, And then if you put it on, there's a more weight, more low frequency in the step. And as you can see, these are also connected. I wanted to at least the layer volumes to be connected between the heel and toe, but you can of course also use different values for these. This was just my aesthetic choice. So why did I put booleans in this? Good question. For that, and for also to see where the additional layers come in, like the ice crackling, etc., we need to take a look at our animation. So this is the typical Unreal Engine mannequin, and this is the animation script, animation event graph. And I'm not going to get over all the footsteps setup because this you can find a billion YouTube videos about this, and I will also link some. But basically, I'm doing very typical, just using the anim notify system to trigger a footstep with a line trace. But the important part for us is to detecting when the character is running versus walking. And I am getting the is running value, which is a boolean, that I am getting this from our third-person character controller. In my case, it says metahuman character. Don't let this deceive you. This is just a third-person character controller that I skinned by using metahuman skin. And in here you can see the sprint. And the sprint basically changes the walk speed of our character. So when it's maximum 200 units, it's walking, and when it's the more than 200 and just 500 units, then is running, basically. So this value, this is running value, is something that I pass to animation, to the character animation as a variable. And based on this, as you can see, I'm branching, and I am using a different sound, a run sound. If you can see the file name, we can also take a look. I'm using, for example, this is liquid run, this is ice run, and this is metal run for different material and platform types. But more importantly, once we spawn the sound, what I'm doing here, depending on walk speed, and not run speed, this is important, depending on walk speed, if a character is walking slower, for example, if it's walking slower than 200, I am mapping this value. For example, if the character is walking at a max walk speed of 200, which is walking speed, then the volume of our additional layer is actually lower. That is 0.2. This is a float value that I am passing to the additional layer gain. And if the character is walking slower, if it's walking close to 10 units, for example, then the additional layer gain is actually higher. So the way I put this is aesthetically, when the character is walking slower in the snow or water, liquid, there is more additional layers. There are more details into the step that is audible when you walk slower. So another the comparison that I do is also if it's less than 50, if it is even slower walking than the 50 units. So if it's equal or less than 50, then I'm also putting the weight layer on. Again, this Boolean check is important for us because of this. And as you can see, these are all Metasound targets that I'm spawning upon walk. And after spawning that, I am changing the values during runtime, depending on the ground speed. So basically, depending on if the character is walking slower or with a regular speed. And it is possible to test this while using a controller more than anything, because with the keyboard, usually your walk speed is almost always set at the max. And when you're using controller, it is possible to, like when you're using a gamepad, it is possible to walk slower. So yeah, this is one way I'm using the footstep implementation. The rest is pretty conventional stuff like switching between the surface types. Again, I'm going to put a video by another, good YouTuber that shows you how to create the surface type and just selecting a wave file. These are all pretty standard. And and there's also one more thing about footsteps that has to do with the perspective switch between first person and third person that I do in this demo, but I will get into this. I will get into this section on that video and not in this video. So just because I'm skipping it right now, don't fear. I'm also going to talk about how the camera perspective change affect our footsteps as well, because it does. So this is a much more shorter explanation of what I've done than the time it actually took me. But we can also take a look at run and see it is pretty much the same, aside from the layers, of course, again. Yeah, and when you're running, as you can see, both the cinematic layer is on by default and the weight layer is on by default. So this is, for example, something you can also do if you create templates. You can easily switch these values. I mean, I'm sure you can also even go even further and create a preset or like a patch from this, which I tried, but then you have too many outputs to deal with. This was more legible for me, and also to whomever else you work with or past the Unreal Engine project too. So I really like the don't repeat yourself idea, but I also would love to keep things legible to someone else who never worked on the project before. So that is important. And again, let's take a look at the walk. Cinematic layer, and the weight layer is off by default and only triggered when the character walks slower. And the run, because the idea is that when you're running, you're especially in the snow or I don't know, like metal, you have more weight. Your step has more weight by default, and this is the idea. And again, these most of these are aesthetic choices that you can reconsider depending on your situation, depending on the context of the project, of course, as always. So now let's listen to how it sounds in the game, but I'm going to first isolate it to hear how the changes affect our footsteps. So before I complete this video, I would like to emphasize you can also use these settings like the weight of the character, how it feels, the mood the character is feeling itself in, how the atmosphere of the game is feeling at that moment. It is very important that you can add and subtract details and weight, not just based on the weight of the character, but also on the psychological effect that you would like to create. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next video.